this is How to Draw Patterns in the Coco Wyo book, and today we're up to this flower and bow pattern. So don't forget to put some sheets of paper underneath before you start. And the first step says to colour the base, then let it dry, and we've got this towel to colour. So I'll be using this alcohol marker. It's a Decotime twin marker in colour 167, pale light green, and that's the light green that I'm going to be using for the base colour of this towel. So just using the brush side, I'm going to go over the base. There is something printed on the back of this page, which is that little bit there that's showing through because we've wet the page with the alcohol marker, but it will probably fade when it dries. It's just the title of the next section of the book they've printed on the back of this page, because usually they're all printed one-sided. So when you're colouring in your usual alcohol marker colouring books, you won't have anything printed on the back. But we'll see if that fades after this dries. So I'm just going up and down with this marker pen. Don't let it dry, so you've got to be quite quick, but also take your time, so it doesn't dry and cause any streaky lines. Now I'm going to let that dry, so if you've got a little handheld fan, you can use that. Just make sure it's completely dried before step 2. So now that has dried, you can see that little bit of ink from what's printed on the other side of the page has also faded a little bit. So next, this step 2 says add played lines using a darker shade, then let it dry. So I'll be using, this is my, even though the tops look like that's the darker one, that's actually lighter. So for the darker shade I'm using 173 dim green, and as you can see that's a very slightly darker shade than the other one. I always test my pens before I use them. I don't just go off the cap colours, because as you can see 167 looks darker than 173, but it's actually not. So I always test them out before I use them on the paper, just to make sure. So for these played lines, I'm going to, the towel is quite wiggly. It's got like wiggly edges, so I don't think that the lines need to be super straight. So you can sort of follow the wiggle if you want. So I'm doing them about 2 strokes wide, and then try to leave a gap about the same width. In between, so that they're evenly spaced out. And you can see that little bit of ink from the other side of what's printed on the other side of the page showing through, but that should fade again when the ink has dried. So there are all my lines going downwards. I think I'm going to let that dry before I do the lines going across, so that when they go across it will be a little bit darker where they meet in between, and I want them to be thoroughly dry so that that doesn't become a bit of a mess in between. I'd like the little squares to sort of remain as a square instead of bleeding into each other. So I'm just going to let that dry properly as well. So now those stripes have dried, I'm going to do the stripes going across, and you might want to turn the book around a little bit so that it might be easier to draw the stripes across. So I'm not going to completely go across like that because the back bit of this towel is slightly further up, so the pattern will be slightly not in line with the front. And again, I'm going to do them about 2 strokes apart and then try to leave about the same width in between. So now for this section, slightly not matched up with that back section. And then where the lines cross over, it should dry slightly darker in the middle. So that is the plaid base. And then next step says draw simple flowers. So for this step I'm going to be using an acrylic marker for the orange of the flowers, because if I use a felt tip pen or a alcohol marker, the green might show through the orange a little bit and change the colour of it. So because I want quite a solid colour of orange on top, I'm going to use this alcohol marker. Oh, it's not an alcohol marker, an acrylic marker, sorry. And these don't have a brand name on them. I have done a video on them on my YouTube channel. They've got a giraffe on the front. They're acrylic paint markers. They're not really, haven't really got a brand, but there is a link. I'll put links in the description if you want to have a look at them on Amazon. So now that should be dry while I've been colouring in this little section here. So for the flowers, they're made up of like 3 arches and then joined together with a curve underneath, and we're going to put them randomly on this towel. So we'll start off with drawing 3 curves, 1, 2, 3, like that, and then join them together underneath with a big curve and then colour it in. And I might go over all of these again just to make sure it's a really solid orange colour. So tilt them in different directions, do them randomly. So 1, 2, 3 arches, and then join them together with a curve underneath. And again, 1, 2, 3, and then join together, and you should get this simple flower shape. So just do that all over the towel and tilt them a little bit on slightly different angles. Tilt them to the left, tilt them to the right, and you might get half a flower here and there near the edges. So you might get half a flower there, maybe a little bit of a flower there, and then on this back section you probably won't get a full flower at the back because it's not big enough. So just draw little bits of flowers at the back there. Now it's covered quite well actually, but I'll just give them another little layer of acrylic pen just to make it a more solid orange colour, just so that check plaid colour isn't quite showing through. And these acrylic markers dry quite quickly. So the next colour that I will be using for these little stems and leaves underneath is this felt tip pen. It's a green Staedtler felt tip pen, and I don't need it to be an acrylic marker because it's green, so the shade underneath is green. It shouldn't affect the colour of this too much. So for the little stems of the flowers, I might use this wide end, just draw the stem, and then underneath for the leaves it's a little bit like an elongated wide heart shape. So if you do like a heart that's been flattened for the leaves and then colour it in, so a little stem and then like an elongated heart shape. So that's my simple flowers done, and then step number 4 says add random bows and hearts, and they've used like a pale sort of mint green colour, so I've got another Staedtler felt tip in a sort of mint green colour. So for the bows, I find it easier if we do like a figure of 8 shape and then do the little tails coming off them. So randomly in all these gaps, do like a figure of 8. I don't know if I might actually use the broader tip. Might be better for that, just make it a bit thicker. So a figure of 8 and then 2 little tails coming off, and tilt these to the sides as well so they're facing different ways. And don't forget to do some little random half ones, little tails and loops just for where they would be not quite fully showing on the patterns. And then in between all of those little gaps, they've done these little tiny hearts as well in the same colour. So just fill in all those little gaps wherever you can with a little heart. And that is my flower and bow pattern. So now all I have to do is colour in the rest of the little towel rail